What if I told you that some of the most iconic travel destinations in the United States, the places you grew up dreaming of visiting, are now nearly abandoned? Not because of war or disaster, but because tourists have simply stopped coming. In 2025, tourism across America isn't just declining. In some states, it's collapsing. Cruise ships are skipping ports. Hotels are running under 50% capacity, and entire cities are watching billions of dollars vanish almost overnight. From rising crime to wildfires, political chaos to economic burnout, each of these states has its own breaking point, and the ripple effects: job loss, community decline, and shuttered landmarks that may never reopen. Which states are in crisis? And is your favorite destination on the brink of disappearing? Stick around, because what you're about to discover will completely change the way you think about traveling in America. Number 10. Nevada. Once a neon-lit fantasy land that drew in over 40 million visitors annually, Nevada's tourism industry has been gutted, with a shocking 38% drop in visitors in just 1 year, according to the U.S. Travel Association. Las Vegas, the crown jewel of desert entertainment, is bleeding foot traffic as international tourists dry up and younger American travelers skip the Strip entirely. Why? A combination of economic inflation, skyrocketing airfare, and a 22% spike in petty theft and tourist scams on the Las Vegas Strip has changed the vibe. Gen Z and millennials, who make up 53% of new travel consumers, are ditching slot machines and live shows for digital experiences, online casinos, and curated retreats elsewhere. Meanwhile, Chinese and European travel to Nevada has dropped by over 61%, thanks to visa bottlenecks and diplomatic tensions. Even the state's economic backbone, the casino sector, has seen a revenue collapse. In 2025, Clark County reported a $3.1 billion loss in gaming income. Once premium hotels like the Venetian and Caesar's Palace are now offering weeknight rates for as low as $89. Still, occupancy rates are below 60%. What was once the ultimate escape is now an echo chamber of empty buffets, shuttered shows, and dimmed lights. And it's only getting worse. Number 9. Florida. Florida, long the sun-soaked darling of American tourism, is now one of the most politically and environmentally turbulent states, and it's costing them dearly. In 2025, Florida's tourism numbers dropped by 31% overall, with a staggering 44% decline in international visitors, particularly from Canada, the UK, and Latin America. At the heart of the decline is controversy. New state laws affecting immigration, LGBTQ+ rights, and race education have made Florida a focal point for global travel advisories. The NAACP, ACLU, and even the Canadian government have issued warnings against travel to Florida. The result? Entire family trips and student groups have rerouted to more inclusive destinations. But politics isn't the only poison. Theme park attendance is falling. Disney World reported a 27% drop, while Universal saw a 24% decline. And cruise ports in Miami and Tampa have seen lower boarding numbers due to elevated hurricane activity and new safety concerns in Caribbean routes. Then there's the workforce exodus. With job insecurity rising and hospitality wages stagnant, Florida lost over 138,000 tourism jobs in a single year, the equivalent of wiping out the entire workforce of Fort Lauderdale. From Key West to Daytona Beach, the message is clear. Florida is no longer seen as a safe or welcoming vacation haven. The tourism empire is cracking under pressure, and no amount of sunshine can fix it. Number 8. California. California, the land of movies, mountains, and the Pacific Coast Highway, is now at war with its own image. Despite its endless attractions, tourism in California declined by 19% in 2025, amounting to a loss of over $11.2 billion in revenue. And it's not just because of the cost. Let's start with San Francisco. Once celebrated for its culture and tech innovation, it's now plagued by rampant homelessness, drug addiction, and theft, making global headlines. Video footage of open-air drug markets in the Tenderloin and daylight store robberies in Union Square have gone viral on TikTok and X, spooking both domestic and international travelers. Tourism to San Francisco has dropped by 36% year over year. Los Angeles fares no better. Hotel rates are still sky high, but safety concerns and air quality issues due to record-breaking wildfires, over 1.2 million acres burned so far this year, are dragging down bookings. Popular destinations like Disneyland and Hollywood Boulevard have reported a 15 to 20% drop in visitor foot traffic. And then there's the economic factor. The average cost for a 7-day California vacation for a family of 4 now exceeds $6,800, pricing out middle-class Americans entirely. When flights, food, parking, and resort fees add up, tourists are choosing cheaper, safer states like Colorado, Utah, or Tennessee. Even scenic getaways like Lake Tahoe are struggling, with snowfall declines forcing ski resorts to shorten seasons and wildfire smoke polluting summer air. In short, the California dream has turned into a crisis, and tourists are waking up. Number 7. Hawaii. Aloha no longer means welcome, at least not in 2025. Hawaii, once the crown jewel of American tourism, has seen a seismic shift. Tourism has dropped by 34%, devastating a state where over 1 in 5 jobs rely on the travel industry, and where tourism contributes more than $17 billion annually to the local economy. But what happened? First, nature turned hostile. The 2023 and 2024 Maui wildfires were only the beginning. In 2025, sea level rise and drought conditions have forced water rationing in key areas like Oahu and the Big Island. Coral reef bleaching has destroyed snorkeling industries, and increasingly severe tropical storms are making travel insurance companies blacklist Hawaii from coverage. But the real shift has come from the locals. After years of rising costs, displacement, and resource scarcity, native Hawaiians began pushing back hard against mass tourism. Viral campaigns like "Hawaii is not your playground" and "Aloha is earned" sparked a statewide movement to cap tourism. Result? Strict limits on short-term rentals. Even honeymooners are opting for cheaper, friendlier destinations like Bali or Costa Rica. For Hawaii, paradise isn't lost, but it's definitely on hold. The message is clear. It's time to stop, rethink, and reset the model. Until then, tourists are staying away. Number 6. Illinois. Illinois, home to Chicago, Route 66, and deep dish pizza, is in free fall when it comes to tourism. In 2025, the state recorded a 29% drop in total visitors, its sharpest decline since post-9/11. And while the rural parts of Illinois are feeling the ripple effects, the epicenter of the crisis is Chicago. The city's once bustling Magnificent Mile is now dotted with shuttered storefronts. Tourism leaders point to a 23% rise in violent crime, particularly around Navy Pier, Grant Park, and public transit stations. In fact, multiple European consulates have issued Level 2 travel advisories to their citizens, warning them to exercise increased caution in Chicago, a move that has crushed international conference bookings. McCormick Place, once the world's busiest convention center, has seen a 41% reduction in major events, costing the city hundreds of millions. Restaurants and hotels are closing in a domino effect, with over 14,000 hospitality jobs lost since January. Even local tourism has dropped off. Rising tolls, parking fees, and the repeal of downtown tax incentives have discouraged regional visitors from making weekend trips into the city. And it's not just Chicago. From Springfield to Peoria, Illinois is struggling to maintain its appeal in an era of high crime, deteriorating infrastructure, and economic anxiety. With billions in lost revenue and a broken public image, Illinois is no longer the heartland hero of American tourism. It's a state on edge, and visitors can feel it. Number 5. Alaska. Alaska, once the untouched crown jewel of ecotourism, is melting away quite literally. In 2025, Alaska saw a 47% drop in cruise ship arrivals, the largest single-year decline in the state's modern tourism history. That's devastating in a state where cruise tourism alone contributes over $1.2 billion annually. What's happening? First, climate change. Glaciers that once brought awe to millions are receding at rates up to 90 feet per year, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. The famous Exit Glacier near Seward practically vanished from public view. Tourists aren't paying thousands to witness environmental decay, and tour operators are canceling glacier excursions altogether. Second, global unrest. With rising fuel prices and maritime insurance premiums due to geopolitical tensions, cruise companies are cutting back on long-haul routes. Holland America and Princess Cruises slashed their Alaska itineraries by 38%, citing unsustainable costs. Flights aren't helping either. The average round-trip fare to Anchorage surged to $1,135 in 2025, pricing out middle-income tourists. Local communities like Juneau and Ketchikan, which depend on tourism for up to 75% of seasonal income, are already declaring economic emergencies. Restaurants are closing, tour guides are moving out, native-run heritage tours, once booming, are now nearly empty. Even wildlife is disappearing. With salmon stocks at record lows, fishing excursions are down 60%. What was once wild, pristine, and untouchable is now unstable, unaffordable, and forgotten. Number 4. New York. New York, the city that never sleeps, is now watching its hotel rooms go dark. In 2025, New York State recorded a 26% drop in tourism. But New York City alone lost $4.8 billion in tourism-related revenue. That's the equivalent of wiping out the entire GDP of some small nations. At first glance, it doesn't make sense. Broadway is open. Times Square is buzzing. But a deeper look reveals a slow collapse driven by fear, fatigue, and finance. Let's talk crime. In just 1 year, subway-related assaults rose 19%, while tourist scams and credit card frauds surged 33%. Social media footage of brawls in Penn Station and looters targeting high-end stores in Soho went viral. And for international travelers, perception is everything. According to the UK and German embassies, New York is now one of the top 5 US cities their citizens avoid. Then there's cost. A 4-star hotel in Manhattan now averages $497 per night, and restaurant prices have soared. A family of 4 could easily spend over $1,000 per day without doing anything luxurious. That's led to a drop in family tourism, particularly from Latin America and Asia, once key contributors to NYC's visitor economy. Even flagship attractions are hurting. The Statue of Liberty ferry reported a 29% decline in passengers, and the Empire State Building saw ticket sales drop by 41% compared to 2022. And in upstate New York, once thriving spots like Niagara Falls and the Finger Lakes are watching their wineries, resorts, and event centers struggle to fill capacity. The Empire State isn't falling, but it's definitely cracked. Number 3. Mississippi. Now this one might surprise you. Mississippi was never a tourism giant, but in 2025, it's officially in freefall, with a 52% drop in domestic tourism. That's more than half of its modest visitor base gone, and it's having catastrophic ripple effects in local economies that were already fragile. So what's behind the collapse? First, perception. Mississippi consistently ranks at the bottom for public health, education, and infrastructure, and the state has struggled to modernize. In 2025, Jackson and Gulfport saw heat warnings for 61 consecutive days, and wild flooding in the Mississippi Delta displaced entire communities. These conditions shut down state parks, destroyed historic sites, and damaged roads, making some areas outright inaccessible. Third, cultural loss. Mississippi's once vibrant blues tourism, think Clarksdale and the Delta Blues Trail, is fading. Music venues are closing due to lack of funding, aging audiences, and, ironically, gentrification pushing out the very communities that created the music. Then there's civil unrest. In 2024 and 2025, protests over voting rights, prison conditions, and Confederate monuments made national news, casting Mississippi as a state stuck in the past. Travel forums are flooded with warnings: unwelcoming, unsafe, nothing to do. Mississippi needed tourism to revitalize, but now it's losing even that lifeline. Number 2, New Mexico. New Mexico, the land of enchantment, is losing its magic. In 2025, the state posted a 41% year-over-year decline in tourism. For a state that depends on cultural festivals, arts tourism, and outdoor recreation, this is a full-blown crisis. Let's start with the environment. The Hermit's Peak fire of 2022 was just the beginning. In 2025, wildfires consumed nearly 1.8 million acres, forcing evacuations across Taos, Santa Fe, and Ruidoso. Historic pueblos and UNESCO heritage sites had to close, with air quality so toxic that outdoor tours were canceled statewide for weeks. Add to that a 35% drop in snowpack in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, devastating ski resorts and river rafting industries. For eco-tourists, the state now feels unstable. Then comes the economic problem. New Mexico has one of the highest poverty rates in the U.S., 18.5%. And its roads, signage, and visitor infrastructure are crumbling. Car rental companies report record damage claims from potholes. Visitor centers are closing due to lack of funding. Even airport routes are being slashed. Albuquerque lost 6 direct flights from major hubs this year alone. Culturally, the state is also at a crossroads. Native American communities, particularly Navajo and Pueblo leaders, have begun restricting access to sacred land after decades of tourist exploitation. Annual events like the Gathering of Nations are being scaled back to reduce outside disruption. Tourism was New Mexico's soft power. Now it's become a burden they can't afford to fix. Number 1, Louisiana. No state is suffering more in 2025 than Louisiana. Once the heartbeat of Southern culture, cuisine, and music, Louisiana's tourism has collapsed by a catastrophic 58%, according to the National Travel and Hotel occupancy in the French Quarter has plummeted to 42%, and over 3,000 hospitality workers were laid off just this spring. The causes are brutal. First, climate change. Louisiana has experienced 3 major hurricanes in the last 18 months. Each time, the infrastructure gets weaker. Streets remain flooded weeks after storms. Mold infestation is rampant. Insurance costs are unmanageable. Tourists don't want a vacation in a disaster zone. Second, violent crime. New Orleans now has the highest murder rate per capita in the U.S., up 21% from the year before. That news travels fast. Travel agents report a 61% drop in honeymoon and wedding-related bookings to Louisiana. Then, there's the cultural drain. Festivals like Jazz Fest and Mardi Gras are still running, but with fewer performers, tighter curfews, and smaller crowds. Rising costs have pushed local artists and musicians out. The spirit is fading. Outside NOLA, places like Baton Rouge and Lafayette are also hurting. Swamp tours are closed due to unsafe waters. Cajun country is facing drought and disappearing bayous. The tragedy? Louisiana could have been the comeback story. Instead, it's now the cautionary tale of what happens when culture, climate, and crisis collide. So, there you have it. 10 U.S. states where tourism isn't just slowing down, it's collapsing. From climate disasters to rising crime and vanishing landmarks to economic turmoil, the travel landscape in America is shifting fast. If you found this eye-opening, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications, because there's a lot more coming your way. Also, let us know in the comments, Have you visited any of these places, or are you rethinking your travel plans for 2025? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.